Welcome to You Can't Make This Shit Up. We're here in a UCF location because we like to travel. This is David. I'm Joel, and we're ready to talk about the Supreme Court again. I love it.
Yes.
Moore versus Harper. This is where the
Yes.
state legislature came out and said, elections are local. The federal government shouldn't have any oversight over what we do because there's no such thing as a federal election. And that is just the same thing that happens all the time. You think you got more power than you got, you get shot down.
And what they're talking about is this so-called independent state legislature theory, which contends that the elections clause of the U.S. Constitution provides state legislators alone, the power to govern federal elections unencumbered by traditional oversight from state constitutions, courts, and governors. How radical is that?
In theory, it's a great way of looking at it. But the courts have decided that they have oversight. Are you going to say that only state court? They were trying to take state courts out of this
That's
too.
correct.
See, that's where you make a mistake.
That's correct.
You have state courts. The state courts will make decisions on what the state legislature is doing. So oversight is not going to disappear. And as long as a state court looks at your situation and decides that, we might have to hold off on these. You had 5 black districts, and now you're only going to have 2. You may be breaking the law here, so let's hold off on your movements. Let's get a stay of execution, so it's not going to happen at this time.
Right.
And then they want them not to be able to even do that, and then to have the Supreme Court and the other courts not be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to overrule this court. That's what they want. But the Supreme Court can then come back and say, nope, the original court is good to go. And they wanted to eliminate all that oversight. And there was no way.
That's right.
If you watch my episode of the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court wasn't even defined when it came out. They defined themselves. They were the ones who determined that they were going to oversee and check the legislatures. And make sure and make sure that the president of the United States was enforcing the law. Andrew Jackson said, until the Supreme Court can enforce the law, and he went on his way, that backfired on him anyways because the courts got stronger.
In this most extreme form, this independent state legislature theory would give state legislators unfettered power to rewrite voting laws, putting at risk, vote by mail, same-day voting, ranked choice voting systems. This would have been a coup.
No, see, David, now I'm going to kind of...
In its most extreme form.
I'm just...
And we know how humans are.
I get it, but again, here's where you and I get to have some fun because I love to make stupid comments, and I'm going to say it's right what I feel. And it's, if the Democrats want to continue to say that their voters are so stupid that they can't get voter IDs and they can't do this and they can't do that. Listen, I give credit to my fellow Americans, no matter what their color, no matter what their race or creed is, that they're smart enough to know how to get an ID. And if they're homeless, they're already struggling. The government has failed them, and they are able to be provided identification. We even have nonprofits trying to help them identify themselves. We have all this going on, and yet we want to fight with certain things like voter ID laws.
Well, if the Republicans and conservatives weren't so hell bent on destroying our democracy by limiting and restrictions and creating laws to prevent people from voting, we wouldn't be talking
But what
about
laws?
voter ID
See, this is what I
laws.
ask. What laws have they put in place that prevent people from
Well,
voting?
if I would like to give a bottle of water to someone standing in line on election day for hours because the polling place is ill-staffed, not enough polling booths, and if I wanted to give someone who has been standing in line for hours a bottle of water, I can go to jail. I can go to jail.
Are you influencing the election? Are you an election worker?
I am not an election worker.
So you're not canvassing, or you're not a party person. You're just
So
a
I'm
citizen.
standing.
You're a
I'm,
citizen
I'm
that walks
standing.
up.
I'm standing in line. This
Okay.
is my example. I'm standing in line,
Gotcha.
and I'm giving someone who is standing in line a bottle of water
Correct.
because they're thirsty. They've been standing in line for hours. I didn't say who I was. I didn't say who that person was. Maybe it was my girlfriend. Maybe it was my mother.
That's not the way the
But
law was written.
I can still be arrested.
No, that was not the way the law was written.
How was the law written?
The law was written if you're advocating for a party, if you're advocating for a party, or you're doing any electioneering, you are not allowed to bribe. Basically, is what the point is, to bribe people with food and water and
I have to
services.
prove that after I'm arrested. And you know that.
No,
you know that.
You don't see. This is not.
You know that. I
you're-
can walk up to someone.
You're assuming
with
you're
a
getting
bottle.
arrested.
Oh yeah, I am assuming.
You do know who's turning you in.
However,
The
yes,
person that's turning you in
is
has
someone
seen
in
you.
line or
has
someone
already-
with an AR-15.
No, it's somebody's already
know,
seen you electioneering.
150 yards away. Wait a second. He's giving that black man is giving
No,
that person some bottled water. He's trying to bribe that
it's
person.
David was holding a Biden sign, and then he put the Biden sign down and gave this guy water. That means you were electioneering and walking over.
Okay.
Who's turning you in? The guy holding the Trump sign. I'm
Exactly.
sorry.
But Joel, we know how people are, and they may not see that I'm with that person or I'm related to that person and make assumptions themselves.
Damn, David,
and
I could
call
say
it
something
in.
really bad.
And call it in. And
Listen,
we know those situations happen.
you're standing behind a woman and you're rubbing her shoulders and you're caressing her. You tell her to hold your place in line so you can go get her some water.
Deflect.
You think when you come back, they don't know that you were with her? Unless the guy behind her still does the same thing and she doesn't realize you.
It's just that with the prohibitions on vote by mail, and here in Florida, you have to register every year to have vote by mail.
So you're saying
instead
making
of every
things
2
harder.
years.
So you're saying making things harder.
Having remote drop boxes, limiting those drop boxes to certain areas and certain times. I truly believe a democracy is better when its citizens are unencumbered to participate.
Well,
in.
David, then go move to a democracy. I mean, honestly, you live in a republic, so if you want to go do the democracy thing,
A republic
democracy, we have democracy to make these decisions.
I walked into that one.
But yes, I'm just saying you did walk into it. I was waiting. So no, David, honestly, you know my stand. Like, I still think the legislature should select our senators, but the Constitution's been changed.
Yes.
I'm one that believes when the amendments get passed, I believe in them, whether I want them or not. But I think that we'd have better voters if certain things were still in place. But that's an assumption. I can only assume.
Agree.
Because I thought that the Senate was better when legislatures picked the Senate.
Okay.
But that's because I'm a history buff.
Right.
I don't think fame and fortune and all these rich people now sitting, at the head of the table. Look at the Senate. How many are real down to earth you and me's?
In the Senate,
0.
Maybe
they're all elites. They all have money.
Senator out of New Mexico, Nevada.
Maybe somebody, but no. I mean, you have to run statewide. There's 2 of you, and these are mostly rich, wealthy people.
Yeah.
There's not the common people that you would expect, and they get 6 years. How many jobs do you get 6 years? I want the county commissioners to have 6 years.
Sure.
And people look at me like Ooh, why would you want that?
Yeah,
Because I want the turnover. I want experience there longer. If you're going to give me term limits,
right.
give me 12 years of experience instead of 8 years and then having to refresh a whole thing.
I agree.
That's me. But now, if you're going to put rich people, because they're wealthy enough to run, they're wealthy enough to have the friends to be able to support them.
Right.
They get in there, and then what are they doing? They're influencing things that help them.
Right.
So, I mean, yes, I was being silly, but our democracy, I think we need to not make it so free that anybody can vote. I think still it should be citizens. I think that
White landowners.
Well, no, I think black landowners too, and
male, white, and black.
No, I think females. Like, I'm a Republican. We gave the right to vote to black people. We gave the right to women. We gave the civil rights. We did all these things, and then we abandoned them. And now we're just, we're just trying to hold on to big business, I assume, because that's what it's. No.
Well,
I'm being silly.
Ron DeSantis has a thing against big business and big tech.
Hey, I love to watch listen. On another show, we have to talk about the fact that he does not want the Disney lawsuit until August of 2025. Is that not
after the election?
Isn't that not beautiful? Like, we don't want to talk Disney until after the election. I'm not picking on him. Don't come after me, DeSantis. I mean, I'm just making a silly joke, but it's true. Don't do anything now that we can put off till later, right? Just like giving our children the bill for the day of all the money that Biden has printed.
In regards to this particular Supreme Court, my final thought, in regard to the Supreme Court, they've made some surprising rulings on election law, on gerrymandering, on the VRA, voters' rights issue, the elections clause with this independent state legislature theory, and it seems that the Roberts Court is taking control from the conservative wing of the Supreme Court.
Listen, my final word on this is I like the Roberts Court because the Roberts Court is addressing the Constitution. They're not allowing the Republican Party to railroad everything that they want through by looking at the law and understanding where they stand. Now, the problem I see with liberals is they're not going to look at it this way. They're going to continue to beat this court up and tell them, radical right and everything else, when you have true lawyers, true judicial decisions coming out where we're talking about you don't have the free reign to do what you want to restrict Black people from voting with the Alabama decision. You don't have the right to, have unfettered access to your elections without any oversight. I see them looking at the law and not looking at the politics right now. And yeah, you can talk about Clarence Thomas or whatever.
I did.
I mean, I know you do, but that's fine. We're going to have 6-3 decisions, 8-1 decisions that are really, liberals are sitting there still complaining when they're in their favor. So, final word, I think this court is absolutely addressing the most important issues of today.
We're hearing more decisions that are coming out. We'll be addressing those. It's been quite the summer session for SCOTUS.
Robert, I'm so pissed off. I got to pay back my student loans now. You had to get that one. Please like us and share. Have some fun. This is You Can't Make This Shit Up.
Joel, David, take care.